If you're struggling with your fly fishing casts, either you want more distance, tighter loops, avoiding crashes, getting your line to straighten out, etc., I put together a compilation of my fly casting errors videos, taking clips from each of those so you can get a good idea of what might be going on with your cast. I'm Chris Myers of Orlando Fly Casting Lessons. I've been teaching fly casting as a certified instructor here in Central Florida for over 15 years, and I see the same kind of errors over and over. And when you're trying to identify what might be going on with your cast, it's very possible that there may be more than one thing occurring. So as you go through this video, check down which ones apply to you. One error commonly causes you to do another and another, etc. And we've got to figure out what's happening first so you can address the initial issue before you start trying to fix the final outcome. These videos are not in any particular order, but they are things that I see over and over on my fishing charters and in my personal casting lessons. So hopefully this helps fix your cast. Today we're going to talk about what a tailing loop is and how you can fix it. A tailing loop is caused when the tip of our rod travels below the straight line path. So if this is the tip of my rod, here's my straight line. As that rod goes back and forth, the rod bends, it goes down the straight line, it straightens out, it stays on the straight line. If we bend the rod too much, it goes down below the straight line, it straightens up, it pops above it, and it often recoils down and crosses it again. That can cause the tailing loop. So look at what the tip of the rod is doing in this video, especially in the slow motion. And then you can follow the fly leg of the cast and it'll show you exactly what the tip was doing. This is a tailing loop, and you see that there are two spots where the fly leg, or what should be the top part of the loop, go across the rod leg. And that big dip we have underneath the rod leg coincides with where the rod tip dipped down below the straight line path. First we're going to look at a normal regular cast. See how the rod does not overbend. It bends just enough to flip the line off the tip, but it begins bending right away as soon as I change directions. There's a nice narrow loop. You can see that loop appeared to be closed, but it does not cause a problem. It's only crossing over once. There's a narrow loop traveling up in the back. There's one with a slight point directed down towards the target. So most of the time I'm casting slightly up in the back, slightly down in the front, so that my fly lands or straightens out right above my target, is not subject to the wind or just aerodynamics, and so it doesn't randomly fall somewhere. See how that rod starts bending right away? It flips the loop over the top, that loop unrolls towards the target. So now that we know how to identify what a tailing loop is and how it's caused, which is by the tip of the rod going below the straight line path and then popping up above it, we need to figure out how is this happening. I teach lots of fly casting and I do lots of fly fishing charters, and more often than not I see this occur when people are creeping forward as the line is still unrolling behind them, and then because their stroke length is going to be so short in the front, they have to put full power on in a very short amount of stroke, which overbends the rod. Let's see if you could pick that up. So here is my normal cast. It's stop, 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 follow through. If the stop and freeze or a slight drift backwards in the back, it's never creeping forward. But if I start to creep forward as the line's still traveling backward, and now I'm starting my forward cast from here, I have such a little zone left to go, so I can only go from here to here and maintain some kind of loop.
If I come from here to here, I'm going to completely lose the loop, which often happens. The people that don't get tailing loops and creep forward often have this cast where they just slam it down and there is no loop going forward at all. But if you're getting the tailing loop, it may be because you creep forward and then you have to make a very hard cast in a very short stroke, which is over bending the rod. Let's talk about some remedies for fixing this tailing loop. Number one is, when I'm practicing, if I get in the habit of looking back there and watching my rod stop back here, I will start to eliminate the temptation to creep forward. I find that most people that creep forward a lot have back casts that look something like this. And the reason they're creeping forward is to keep that back cast, the hook or the line, from hitting the water or the ground, whatever, behind them. And so they immediately start coming forward, and that's how they get the tailing loop, because their forward stroke is so short. So solution number one is, let's get our back cast up here, take that line, flip it up over the top, get that thing away from there. Now I can sit back here and freeze. Here's where I'm starting my forward stroke from, so I get to go all the way out to here. If I cheat forward, now I'm starting my forward stroke from here and I use the same amount of power, I didn't come close to getting that line straightened out. We also want to look at what is the entire length of my stroke for the amount of line I'm trying to cast. For a little bitty short piece of line, for this amount of line, I barely need to move my rod at all. It's a very short cast, I can do it with my wrist. If I add on another 20, 30 feet of line on here, or even another 15 feet, now my stroke goes from back here to out here. Look how much longer it is. It's almost twice as long. But if I'm stopping my back cast right here, and I make my forward cast stop in the same place, my back cast was only half as far. I'm gonna have to add extra power, overbend the rod, can end in a tailing loop. Most beginner fly casters use far too much wrist and not enough arm in their casting, causing the rod to go around in a big curve or even a half circle. So if I don't move my hand enough and I use all wrist, you will see that the cast goes directly down behind me, and the tip, as it goes back and forth, is drawing a big curve. What we want it to do is go back and forth in a straight line. And it doesn't matter if that straight line is up here, it could be out here, it could be completely sidearm straight line, sometimes could be tipped up, it could be level, it could be high in the back, low in the front. As long as it's a straight line, we're going to be able to create that loop. But if we continue moving this rod tip in a curve, not only does it create wide open loops, it causes the hook to go down in the back. It can grab whatever's behind you. If there's water back there, the water's grabbing a hold of that line. So we do not want our line going down in the back. The solution is to move this rod in a straight line. And preferably, in most circumstances, if we move our rod slightly higher in the back, slightly lower in the front, that straight line will give us a nice, narrow, tight loop, and it will direct that line out away from us instead of down into the ground or water behind us and down in front of us. So it's easier said than done, especially if you've been using way too much wrist for far too long. But before I begin that straight line path, there has to be a pickup motion as I'm picking the line off the water, because our cast is made from two spots. Here would be the end of my forward cast, somewhere in here. Here would be the end of my back cast, somewhere about in here. So I'm coming slightly down as I come forward, I'm coming slightly up as I go back. So if you watch, my cast is going to have an initial lifting stage, and this all has to be one smooth motion. I can't lift it up and then stop, because the line's going to sink right back down in the water. So once I decide to go, I have to commit, and it's going to go all the way. I lift, 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 straight pause, back down. Again, we're going to lift, straight pause, back down. So you'll notice the path of my tip is a straight line, and that cast is made along that straight line. I'm pulling line here, pull, stop, pull, follow through. So we have a lift, we have a follow through at the end, but the cast itself is made along that straight line.
A very common mistake I see, especially with a lot of new casters, is failure to pause long enough to allow that line to straighten either behind us or in front of us, but we must get that line straight. We must, at the end of our stroke, have a pause, 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 follow through. If you don't pause, the line's not getting straight, and if the line's not getting straight, it's not going to bend the rod on the next stroke. You could, on occasion, hear a little snapping noise as you're going back and forth, kind of like this. Sometimes it's as loud as a whip crack, sometimes it's a dull little thud. But if you hear a popping noise behind you, it's for sure that the line was still traveling backward as you tried to come forward, just like you would crack a whip. If you hear that, you have to start turning around and letting your eyes tell the tip what to do and make sure you see that line getting straight. So you're going to lift it up, look behind you, and watch for it to straighten out. Go straight, forward, straight, forward, straight, forward, follow through. Most of the time people only do it on the back cast, but I have on occasion fished with people who do it on the front and back, and it never stops moving, never gets straight on either side, and they just keep raising their hand up and up and up. If you see that, you have to stop and look behind you and see what's going on. Failure to move that tip in a straight line is going around in half a circle is going to lead to this error, which is going to be very hard to recover from. Very often there's multiple things going on with our cast, and one thing causes another, causes another, causes another. So if you are casting around in a half a circle, the first thing we have to do is get it in a straight line. But if you're sure you're casting up in the straight line and you hear that popping noise behind you, your line's not straightening out, turn around, see what's going on back there, and you will start making much better casts right away.
So many self-taught fly anglers find they reach a point where the line just isn't going out any farther and they can't figure out why. And a lot of people I work with, we quickly discover that you're casting far too hard and just overall trying way too hard to get the line out. So we can never ever bully or power or force fly line to go out farther. It actually usually ends up going shorter. So when we're casting, we want to have a nice gentle stroke and a nice relaxed grip. And if you don't have those two things, it's going to be very difficult for you to improve your casting. A normal basic fly cast comes up, over, down. When I let this cast go, I can let it balance on one finger. So this will be an initial test for you. See if you feel like when you're making your fly cast, are you making them gentle enough that you can balance that rod on one finger and the line still shoots through the guides. If you can't, chances are you're throwing so hard that the rod will fly out of your hand. So that's going to be an immediate key for you to tell, are you casting too hard? The second one is, do you hear the rod whipping back and forth? So you notice on this cast, you barely can hear the rod if at all. Even on the delivery, it's the same as all the false cast strokes. If your cast sounds like this, there's a good chance you're trying too hard. And what happened here, it ended up a big old tangled mess from trying way too hard. Casting too hard often leads to tailing or closed loops, which end up knots in your leaders or the leader wrapped around your fly line or the hook catching on your leader. Hearing that rod whip back and forth, even if I'm not looking at a caster, I can usually guess what their cast looks like. So let's take a look at what that cast actually looked like and what's happening when we try so hard. See how much this rod is bending as it goes back and forth, and watch how it's actually over bending and it flexes down towards the ground and the water and then recovers back up. So instead of it just flexing out and stopping, it's bent so much it flexes down, bounces back up, but it sends the line down into the water and it essentially pulls out the bottom part of our loops. So to correct this issue, what I normally recommend to my students is to think of your fly rod cork as a little baby bird or a little bird's egg. You want to hold this thing so gentle that you don't want to drop it on the ground, but you certainly don't want to crush it. And if we start thinking about a very loose grip and concentrating on that, it's going to relax your arm, relaxes your shoulder, and allows you to have smooth, fluid acceleration instead of a herky-jerky back and forth motion that usually doesn't lead to proper bending of the rod or proper loop formation. So hold that rod gently, and if you're having difficulty doing that, start doing some practice without even using your last two fingers. So we can cast this rod with only 3 fingers on there. So as I'm casting this thing, my bottom 2 fingers aren't even on there, and when I let it go, practice letting it go on that 1 finger. If you're practicing with that, when we all of us, when we get excited, we tend to tense up and adrenaline starts pumping, and we're going to start squeezing a little harder in the excitement of the moment. But if you're already squeezing super hard when you're practicing, and you're going to be crushing this thing when you get excited, when you see fish, and then everything starts to fall apart rather quickly. So we want to get in autopilot with this hand in everything we do, and part of that is having a very gentle and light grip on that rod.
If you made it to this point in the video, you probably are very interested in improving your fly fishing cast. If you're just not able to figure out what the issue is, I do offer video analysis of your cast where I can send you a full report on what I see as an instructor is going on with your cast, and even more importantly, how you can improve and fix the issues that are occurring. And how many times have you made a cast to the biggest fish of the day and then it crumpled up and fell in a pile 5 feet short of where you needed it to go? It's happened to all of us. We're going to go over in detail the top things that cause that to happen to you, and you'll be able to see them actually occur in this video. The number one thing that I see causes people's fly line not to straighten out is they're actually directing it to go somewhere other than where they really intended. If I want this line to straighten out across this pond, my cast must go out across the pond, and the final direction of that line as I pull it out, I stop going out, then I can follow through. The first thing you should look at, if your line is not straightening up, is did you actually make the false cast and then tell it to fall right there in a pile? And in general, what I recommend to people is if you cannot stop there on your false cast, you probably shouldn't be stopping there on the delivery. So if your delivery stroke is down here at waist level, which many people have a finishing stroke that looks like this, try that on your false cast. And what you would see is every time you'd be ripping that up off the water, so nobody does that. Absolutely nobody I fish with cast that way. They cast this way, and then they deliver down here, and that's exactly where I just told it to go. So first thing is check your final point of aim. If you're sure that you are aiming out across like this, but it's still not rolling up, then we need to look at a second possible cause. The second most likely cause for line not straightening out fully is the amount of stroke length you are using is not sufficient for the amount of line you're casting. If I'm casting a very short piece of line, I can get there with a very short little stroke, unrolls every time. If I increase that line, now I got a longer piece of line. I try casting that same stroke. That one didn't. That one made it a little farther, so maybe I should do it a little harder. And now it didn't land straight. It landed in a big curve because it popped back as I did it much, much harder. Longer pieces of line require a longer stroke, so every different length of line we use requires a different length stroke with the tip of your rod. A third possible cause of your fly line not straightening is you are not using enough speed and power, again, for the amount of line you are using. And most of you watching this video are probably not having an issue with 20-foot casts not straightening out. Is when you get farther and farther that it becomes more and more of an issue. So the speed and power I need for a little 20-foot cast is almost impossible not to straighten that out because it's such a short piece of line. As I add more, now I get 30 feet of line outside my tip. Now I'm going to have a little bit more speed. Pull, flip, pull, flip, pull, flip, pull, flip. I must have a longer pulling phase, but that acceleration has to increase consistently across that stroke. If I have not enough speed, so here's the same stroke length, I just don't have enough, it's clearly not going to straighten out. So if your line looks really floppy and it doesn't seem like it could even straighten out, then the solution is going to be starting to add more overall speed. Are you not getting results you want on your fly fishing cast? Maybe it's because your back cast isn't getting straight. Today we're going to take a look at the main reasons people do not straighten out their back cast and how you can improve yours. Before we start any fly casting, I want you to try this simple experiment so you can get a good idea of how important it is and how much difference it makes when your back cast is straight behind you. So take about 20-25 feet of fly line outside your tip. Just lay it out straight on the ground behind you. Lift your rod up into your back cast position. Make sure your line is straight. Then we're going to accelerate through the stroke, make a nice firm stop, and you can shoot out a bunch of additional line doing that. Take that same 20-25 feet of line and do one of two things. Either lay it out in a big curve or put it in a pile behind you with a bunch of slack. Put your rod up in the exact same position, use the exact same amount of power you just used on that last stroke, and it fell in a pile halfway that the last cast went. Because most of that stroke going forward was doing nothing but pulling all the slack I had laid out on the ground. Whether it's laid out on the ground or up in the air, if you are spending some or all of your back cast pulling slack out of the line, you are never going to get the result you're looking for going forward. So I find two common ways that the back cast does not straighten out for people. And the first most common way is people who cast down in the back. And there's a variety of ways people do that, but it can look something like this. Comes up, 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 down. So if all my back casts are going down, down, you can see as I come forward, my line has never gotten straight. My line has not gotten straight, my rod is not bending, I'm not pulling on a straight line telling it the direction I want to go, I am pulling slack out of a loose line.
which is not helping us cast. And the most common reason people cast down in the back is because they bring their rod up to a certain point around in here, and then they stop moving the hand, but the rod's still in front of, or maybe even directly above their head. And if I just tried to make a cast there, it's not enough motion to move that length of line. So we need more rod motion, but if I'm not going to move my hand any farther, you're going to have to finish with a bunch of wrist, which goes down. So the very first thing you can look at is take a video of your cast and see if your back casts are going down, and it puts a big sag in my line. We want our back cast to be going up, or at least level, if we expect a narrow loop accurate cast in the front. So our back cast should go up, 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 up. It goes up and it stops going up. The loop should go up. That gives it time to straighten out back there behind me and not me worrying about it hitting the ground. The second problem with casting down in the back is because it's going to hit the ground, I have to hurry up and come forward, especially if you're casting really low, and then you get a big pile right in front of you. You have to hurry up, and there is no pause back there. So reason number two for not getting the back cast to straighten, if there is no or very little pause going on back there. So when we're casting, there must be a distinct pause, 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 where the rod is frozen or drifting farther back, allowing that line to straighten. If our rod is coming forward while the fly and the fly line are still heading backward, we are stealing away stroke. So that would look something like this. Where there is no pause back there, you'll often hear a little pop from your leader. If you have a very light leader, you can even break your fly off from that little cracking sound, which is a mini little sonic boom from snapping the line so fast back the other direction, it makes a little cracking noise in the air. So if you've been hearing that behind you, that is definitely from you coming forward while it's still traveling backward. The third most common reason that people cannot or do not allow their line to straighten is because it does not have enough line speed going back behind them, and gravity sucks it down. So we could have a perfectly level, straight cast like this. So here's a nice straight line back cast. It's going slightly up in the back, slightly down in the front. I'm going to take that same path, but I'm not going to add as much acceleration throughout that stroke. So I'll be going much slower at the end of that stroke. And now you can see my line is getting a big sag in it back here, and it's almost sagged down to the ground. So as I pull forward, I have to pull all that droop out of my line, which wastes my stroke going forward. So when we have all that sag, or when we are, whether gravity is putting it there or we are putting it there by casting down, it's the same kind of sag. If I have sag, and it took me all the way up here to pull that sag out, now my cast is either going to be extremely short and not long enough to unroll the line, or it forces me to do this, which sometimes will allow you to get the line straight, but oftentimes ends up in a big pile off the end of your fly rod.
If your fly fishing cast and delivery looks something like this, you're going to want to stick around and find out why it's happening and how you can improve your cast. I'm Chris Myers of Orlando Fly Casting Lessons and Central Florida Sight Fishing Charters, and I see the same types of casts over and over and over again, and that's where I get a lot of the ideas for my videos. And that series right there is extremely common in both my casting lessons and my fishing charters. So I'm sure, as much as I see it myself, that a large percentage of people watching this video make that exact same cast. And what I was hoping you noticed in those casts is it goes down in the back, up in the front, down in the back, up in the front, and then I better try to make a delivery to the fish down there because they're definitely not up towards those trees. If you've fallen into that trap and you can't seem to get out of it, and the only way you can seem to make any kind of semi-narrow or even a really super narrow loop, so these are pretty narrow loops. I mean, I can't get them much more narrow than that, but they do me absolutely no good letting them go up here, which nobody ever does. It almost landed at my feet if I did that. Lots of people make those upward forward casts and then are forced to slam the tip down on the delivery in an attempt to get that fly to go near the water. But if we watch that series one more time, you'll find out that even though you had some kind of loop up here, on the delivery, it turns into absolutely no loop at all, and it really never doesn't land where you want with any degree of consistency. A cast that would be much more efficient is something that looks more like this. It unrolls right above the target, and the delivery is exactly the same as the false cast stroke before that. You don't have to make any radical changes to your tip path, which don't make radical changes to how your loops look. The difference between those two casts is very subtle but extremely important, and I enjoy in my teaching trying to figure out why people do what they do. And here's what I've come up with when I've watched countless people make this cast that goes low in the back, high in the front. It all usually starts with the very first pickup off the water. We must get this fly line off the water first before we can accelerate and form our loop. If we try to snatch it off the water too quickly, we're going to overbend the rod and never really get a decent loop at all. What happens to most folks as they're lifting up, they get the line off the water with the rod somewhere up here, somewhere almost directly over their head, pointing straight up and down. When they do that, I get the line off the water here. The only place I have left to go from this point is to bend the wrist and make the rod tip go down, which sends the very first cast down into the ground. Once I make that first back cast that goes down, I've fallen into the trap, and it's extremely difficult to get out of. Not impossible, but difficult. And what happens is you get up here, go down, then you learn quickly that if I go up in a straight line, so if I take the straight line path I'm constantly talking about in almost every video, here's my straight line track. It can either be straight, it could be some degree of this, it could be some degree of this. If you've already come down on the very first one, the only place you have left to go to make a loop is up in the front. If you're going down in the back and down in the front, this probably isn't the video for you, because that's not the cast I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who are actually making loops, but the loops are oriented up in the front and down in the back because they've fallen into the trap the very first stroke. Now, one solution, if you have all day, you're not under the hurry, there's the fish, like we are in sight fishing conditions, you don't have time for 3, 4, 5 strokes. You could make a downward, upward, make one a little more level, make one up, make one down. You could work your way down there eventually. But a better solution is not to fall off that cliff in the first place and get the very first back cast to go up. And in order to do that, instead of rotating the rod as you're lifting the line, if we could lift the line first, then pull and rotate. So our fly fishing cast, and these casts I'm talking about are not little 15, 20 foot casts. We're talking about casts that are 25 foot plus and more into the plus range. How you need to lift that rod. I'm lifting first, then I'm rotating. So it's a lift, pull, then rotate. And by rotate, we're changing the angle from where we started, which is pointing this way, to where we finished, which is pointing that way. That is what we mean by rotation, changing that angle. Save that angle change till the fly line is off the water. Now, most of you who are fighting this issue are lifting, pulling, and rotating all at the same time. So we're starting with very little to no gap, but if you really watch your cast on slow-mo, you will notice that you're going lift, pull, lift, pull, lift, pull, rotate, 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 finish. The only way that line gets down to the back is either you sent it down there with the tip, or you made an awesome cast up here and waited forever and gravity pulled it down, which I almost never see. 99 times out of 100, it is people are casting down in the back because they're left with nowhere else to go except go down. You can test yourself, just try it on grass. It works much better. Get your rod up to here and just see in your mind's eye, here's where I was when I got the line off the water. Let me finish. And I'll do one on the grass here. You cannot do it on the water because you still have to bust the water surface tension. So I'm gonna lift up, 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 up. I got it straight over my head. Now finish. That was a horrible, sloppy cast that's never going to work. But what I can make work is up, 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 go down, go up, go down, go up. That works really good. Works really good for casting. Doesn't work so great for getting a fly to the target quickly and accurately. So your lift is here, then I'm pulling, then I'm rotating the angle. Put that all together. It's lift, pull, rotate, rotate. We can eliminate extra wasted false casts that do nothing except wave that fly back and forth in the air above the fish. Try to minimize your false cast to 2, 3 at the max. 1 is even better, especially when we're picking up and readjusting. I put that on the fish. He didn't see it. He didn't go for it. I know he's not going for it. I don't want to strip it in, feed it back out, make 2, 3, 4, 5 false casts. I want to go 1, 2, back down. But if my very first one goes 1, 2, now I got to work my way back down here. And by that time, that fish is already gone. If you're facing that issue where you can't seem to get that cast to unroll down the front, if you're looking at my cast, go, how is he getting that thing to unroll down there so low, right above the target? It lands where I want. It all starts with the back cast. And the very beginning of all this is the lifting first, no rotation, rotate, pull, rotate, back through. Try checking out your own cast, see if that's happening to you. If you're facing that issue, I'm extremely confident that is how you got to that point. And the fix is to save that rotation till the end of the stroke so you can cast up in the back. You've all probably heard over and over that the rod tip needs to travel in a straight line as we go back and forth. We always have our straight line checker. Here's my rod tip. It goes back and forth in a straight a line as possible if we want to cast narrow loops. There are times when we may not want to do that, but if we're trying to cast narrow, wind efficient loops, we can make a straight line like this, or like that. But we also need to keep in mind, what does our cast look like if we had a camera above our head? And would that camera see that rod tip staying on this rod, or was it coming around here? So now I'm not making a rainbow cast overhead, but if I'm coming out to the side, and it only needs to be a little bit, my cast is going to follow that path. So if you don't seem to be getting those candy cane shaped loops, especially in the back, this is almost always where I see this occur, is on the back cast. And if you're not looking at your back cast, you may not even have noticed this happen. So I highly recommend when you're practicing or trying to improve, you're looking at your back cast. But on our normal cast, we want to maintain that same hand position all the way through. Now, I see lots of different styles, and it doesn't matter whether our hand is facing like this the whole time, like this the whole time, like this the whole time. What matters is as we go back and forth through that stroke, as it stays in that position and it doesn't rotate from here to here. I'm going to recommend that you try to keep the cork in between your thumb and where you're casting. So when I pick this up off the water to start, my thumb is on top. As I lift up, my thumb is still on top.
I can see my fingernails. When I look at my hand, I'm seeing fingernails and not my complete thumbnail. If I twist my hand as I come up, around, now I'm looking at thumbnail, and at the back of the cast, very often you'll only see your thumbnail, not your fingernails. Maybe you see all your thumbnail, just part of your fingernails. What we want to be looking at is all our fingernails and just a tiny sliver of thumbnail. If we're casting in that manner, our casts, so my normal overhand cast right now is coming right over the top of my rod. It's staying in the same place my rod is. So it's not coming anywhere near the camera. When I start flipping this out to the side, now my line is way, along with my fly, is way over there on the other side of the camera. And as I look at this, it swings out and around, comes straight, and then most people usually come over the top. So you swing it out to the side, come over the top. Repeated time after time of that, a lot of instances you're going to find your fly line is all twisted up, the stuff you have stripped off, and then when you want to shoot it, it doesn't go anywhere. Because every time we go around in that little loop, that little twist, it twists up our line down there. It's not the only cause of that, but it definitely is a main cause of that. So look at my hand position, normal cast, normal cast. Now I'm going to start swinging it out to the side. Swing out, swing out. What other problems does this swing out to the side cause? If it's dead calm, a lot of times you can get away with it. Other than it twisting up your line, you can probably teach yourself to cast in that manner. The issue comes when you have a wind, especially from behind you. Instead of that line going straight into the wind, straight away from us, straight out in front of us, straight into the wind, straight out, the line swings out, and when it gets in this position, there's a whole bunch of wind pushing on the entire length of fly line, and very rarely does it ever get back here to get straight. It starts collapsing it, pushing it back towards you. As you come forward, there's so much slack in your cast that the forward cast, which was working great when it was dead calm, suddenly isn't going out half as far. So there's lots of different cast styles that we can get away with when there's absolutely no wind, that even the slightest breeze makes a huge difference in how that cast ends up. The other way that can occur is by not twisting the hand, but by rotating the whole elbow out and around this way, so it has the same effect. It rotates your hand around so you're looking at your thumbnail. Some people do it with their wrist, like this. Some people will just pivot at the elbow back and forth. Take our straight line checker, put your thumb on it. Wherever your thumb goes, that's where the tip goes. Are you coming 90 degrees off the straight line? Are you coming out and around the straight line? Or as you come back, if we point it back this way, it works a little better. As you come back, is it staying in the same position throughout the entire cast, no matter how far we want to go? Or is your back cast coming around? Now my thumb, which my left side of my thumb starts on this rod. Now I got the right side of my thumb on the rod, so I completely twisted it around. So do some false casts without a rod. Close your eyes, just feel your cast the way you normally make it. Then make your back cast freeze, take a look at your hand, and see if your hand is flipped around.
Hopefully you enjoyed this video compilation. If you want to find out more about becoming a better fly caster, please subscribe to this channel. I put out fresh content on a regular basis, and I also have a whole library full of other casting videos. I'm sure you can find something in there that will help improve your catching rate.